Today, I'm going to be diving into 3 crazy stories that show exactly how people go from nothing to building the life that they always dreamed of. We're talking about 3 totally different people from completely different backgrounds, completely different paths, but one identical mindset shift that completely changed everything. Now, one of them was arrested before he was old enough to even drive. The other was living off food stamps. And the last one spent years in essentially complete isolation, wondering why success didn't feel like success. And now they've all built multi-million-dollar businesses, traveled the world, and changed their families' lives forever. Now, really quick before we do go ahead and get started, we're gonna go about this in a 3-phase stage, pretty much every phase that every entrepreneur goes through: discipline, humility, and growth. And to start, we're getting started with phase 1 with AC Hampton. All right, AC Hampton's story is straight out of a redemption movie. He grew up really without much direction. He was bouncing between parents, surrounded by the completely wrong crowd, and chasing quick highs instead of long-term wins.
So the journey has not always been easy, so I want to go ahead and start from the very beginning. I'm originally born and raised in Kansas City, Missouri. You know, the Chiefs were out here killing it. I was raised by my mom and my sister as well as my dad through divorce. So my parents actually got divorced when I was 4 years old, and that was the first time where I experienced a split home. So growing up, I played a lot of sports. I played football, basketball, rugby, anything to keep my time occupied. But without any real guidance, without both my parents being around, this kind of put me in a bad position because I didn't have any real guidance. And ultimately, with no good guidance, causes you to be put in bad positions. I was hanging around the wrong people, and unfortunately, at 16 years old, I ended up getting arrested for the first time. So I ended up getting caught for stealing and vandalism, and this was the first time that I ever really got in trouble.
That moment, getting arrested, became the first real turning point. He said it was the first time that he understood that his choices actually had consequences. And thankfully, he was able to realize that. And here's the wild part. That same accountability he hated back then ended up becoming the exact thing that saved him later. Probation taught him structure. Structure became discipline, and discipline became his escape route. Now, he started working jobs simply to survive, and trust me, I know how that is. McDonald's, dishwashing, roofing, anything that would pay. But every job reminded him of one thing, and it's crazy because I felt the exact same way. He didn't want to live on someone else's schedule forever. It sucks, at least to some people. And to me, it was the same thing.
And in June of 2018, I packed my bags up and I moved straight to Dallas. And mind you, when I moved to Dallas, it wasn't that I didn't know anybody in the city of Dallas, but I didn't know anybody in the whole state of Texas. This was a complete restart. And I seriously knew moving to Dallas, this was not going to be all butterflies and easy cake. I knew that this was going to be difficult, and ultimately I was going to learn a lot about myself because this was either pass or fail at this point. And the job that I ended up accepting was with Southern Glacier's Wine and Spirits. I accepted an outside sales representative position where I was selling wine to all these local businesses. And not just local businesses, what I was taught and informed about, but grocery stores. And not was I just selling these items, but I was building displays. It was all manual labor. I ended up getting play. I'm gonna keep it 100. Southern Glaciers, if you guys are still hiring people, make sure you are very descriptive about what your job title is, because I thought I was selling stuff, and ultimately the only thing I was doing manual labor for $11.50 every 2 weeks. So I was making $11.50 every 2 weeks, working over 70 hours a week and not getting any time off. They told me I couldn't take off Christmas, Thanksgiving, my birthday, any days. It was not happening. After working there for about 6 months, on November 24th, 2018, I ended up actually quitting this job. And that was on a Wednesday. So from Wednesday to Friday of that following week, I applied to over 30 jobs. And actually ended up getting 3 job offers by that Monday. So basically what happened is on Sunday, the night before I had to accept one of these jobs, I had a really big sit down with myself, and I ultimately weighed out all my pros and cons on what I wanted to do in this world. Was I trying to put all my time and energy into just being another number in an organization? Was I trying to put all my time and energy into people who did not care about my own success? Or did I want to go ahead and fully invest in myself? So what I did, back against the wall, I had $2,500 left in my bank account with rent being $1,000. I was going to succeed and I was going to make it work at all costs.
Now imagine working 70 hours a week for less than $12 an hour every 2 weeks. Granted, back then it was a little bit different, but it still sucked. It was not enough. Realistically, that's not even enough to still fill up your car. But instead of quitting on himself, AC quit just the entire system. He took every ounce of frustration that he had and poured it into learning e-commerce. He bet everything, literally $2,500 left in his bank, on figuring this out. And that's where most people start to tap out. Nowadays, in order to get started with something like e-commerce, it's actually way easier than it's ever been, especially with systems like AutoDS. AutoDS really makes it super easy for you to get started. And by the way, just a quick plug, if you want access to AutoDS, you can get started right now for just $1 for the next 2 weeks, and it'll help you automate your entire e-commerce dropshipping business, if that is the route that you want to take. Now, while he did take the right path and he did everything the way that he was supposed to, and ultimately he came out successful, he probably could have taken a bit of a shortcut if he had implemented something like automation early on. But anyway, besides that, that's really the line between comfort and risk. And he crossed it.
So what did I do? Just like a lot of you guys started to do, is you went to YouTube and typed in how to start making money with dropshipping. I was watching some videos about this and I was like, all I have to do is build a website, find a product, and just start selling it to make money. This is gonna be a breeze. So I started my first little website sourcing products from AliExpress. Didn't even know what to sell, but I was just selling items that I liked, which is definitely not what we do nowadays. We validate every single product, but at that time I didn't know. So I was just selling any product that I just wanted to sell. So mind you, I have $2,500 in my bank account. I spent $200 on Facebook ads like the first week I got into it and failed immediately. So I was like, oh, maybe it's just a product. I'll try out a different product. And mind you, at this point, I started off with $2,500. I'm down to about $2,200 to $2,300, and I still have rent coming up in 4 days. So I tested out another product, spent $200 more on ads, and guess what happened again? I failed. So this was about November 29th. I had about $2,000 left in my bank account. December 1st, rent was coming up. So I knew that basically all I had was $1,000 to be able to make this work. So basically what the next step that I did is I slowed down the process of trying to force things to work. And I knew that investing the knowledge that it would take to be able to run this business the right way is the next step that I needed to be able to do. And trust me, this was not easy at this time. Mind you, this is in 2018. If you look on YouTube right now, you can see all types of videos that can be able to help you out. They're informative and teach you ways to be able to really make good money with dropshipping. But whenever I first started, there were no videos out there like this. It did take a while, so fast forward a whole nother month. It took about a month to be able to really learn these lessons and learn what I needed to do to be able to run this business the right way. And on December 22nd, I started another store. On this next store, I tested out my first product after validating it the right way. And on December 24th, 2018, I had my first winning product. So on this day, December 24th, 2018, I found my first winning product, which was a mobile phone screen amplifier. And I ended up taking this to over $100,000 in less than 30 days. I knew right then and there that there was absolutely nothing that could stop me.
Christmas Eve 2018. That's when he found his first winning product. He made $100,000 in a month. And that was the day that his pain is what helped him pay his rent. Now, mind you, if he had access to something like the handpicked product section back then, he would have probably found that winning product a little bit quicker, but everything in due time, right? Look, AC's story isn't about luck. It's about repetition. It's about showing up every single day, even when it looks pointless. And this is probably the hardest thing that people end up falling back on. He built discipline out of desperation, and that discipline eventually became freedom. So if you're in that grind stage, working jobs that you hate, wondering if it's worth it, just remember AC Hampton. He turned $12 an hour paychecks into multi-million-dollar months because he refused to stay the same. All right, so let's go ahead and move on to phase 2, and that's going to be with Jordan Welch, his ego, his failure, and his reinvention. Phase 2 is probably the hardest one. The part where you've already made it, but lose yourself in the process. And that's Jordan Welch's chapter.
I made one of the biggest mistakes I ever made in my entire career. I started to feel as if I was too successful to stay in my hometown. So ever since I was a kid, I wanted to move to Los Angeles, and I made that decision to move there in April of 2018. But it wasn't long before everything came crashing down. When I moved to LA, I started living like I made it. I got this super luxurious apartment with the Hollywood sign view. I stopped dropshipping and focused entirely on coaching because it was more profitable for me at the time. I leased a nice car, I was going out partying, I was buying expensive clothes, I picked up a bunch of bad habits. I was living life like I had actually made millions of dollars, but I barely actually had any money in the bank. And my ego this year was just at an all-time high. And the result? is that at the end of 2018, I had went from around $100,000 in cash to like $30,000 to my name. And the worst part is I had $10,000 a month of expenses living over there in LA.
After his first big win, he moved to LA. He got the nice apartment, he got the parties, the car, everything that you're told that success looks like. But here's the catch. He stopped doing what got him there. The hustle turned into habits, bad habits at that. The discipline turned into dopamine overloads. And the lifestyle started burning up money faster than the income was coming in, or than the money was coming in. And that's something that a lot of creators and business owners fall into, myself included, especially at the very beginning. The illusion that more means progress. But sometimes more is just louder failure. And when it all crashed, it really crashed. His partner took his business money, he was in debt, and by 2020, he had less than $100 on his account.
In my Wells Fargo account, I had less than $100. I even had a bank account that had negative $3.99. And you know, it's funny, the reason why I took a screenshot is because I knew one day I was gonna be making this video and I was gonna bounce back. So I'm glad I made that dream come true. But at that stage of my life, I was in a deep, dark depression. I'm talking, I would lay in bed all day. I didn't want to talk to nobody. I was punching holes in my wall. I would cry at night. And unfortunately, it's really sad for me to say this, but there was one day, and I took a screenshot of it. It was one of my last days in LA. I remember it was raining. It never rains in LA. And I was so down bad that I had called the suicide prevention hotline. It almost hurts me to hear myself say that because I can't believe I had got to that level. But the lady that I spoke to on the phone that day, she actually really helped me. And it wasn't like I was gonna go and do that, but I was so low and I didn't want to tell anybody else how I was actually feeling. So they helped me out then. But I can genuinely say that was the breaking point, and that was the lowest moment I ever reached in my life to this point. And it was at that moment that I decided I had to get the hell out of Los Angeles.
Okay, this part hits really hard. Because that's not just financial rock bottom, that's just overall emotional and just flat out rock bottom. The kind that most people never talk about. He literally said he called the hotline one night because he couldn't handle what he'd become. And this is where his story starts to get like real, or really real, because success doesn't build character, loss does. When he moved home to his mom's couch, expecting silence, his whole family surprised him, waiting there to welcome him back. That love, that reminder that he still mattered, it flipped a switch. He stopped running from his problems and started building again. This time slower, but smarter and cleaner.
I had scaled it past $10,000 in profit. And when that happened, I was back. This also led me to start documenting that journey on YouTube because I wanted to show people what it was like to rise from the ashes and become something again. So I started posting videos every single week sharing my journey of building this business. And by the end of 2020, my business was generating over $100,000 a month. In fact, I even had one day where we generated over $17,000 in a single day. And I used this money to move out of my mom's, move to my own apartment in Miami. And at this point, I had momentum again. I had confidence again. And I knew that I could accomplish these things that I set out to do in the first place.
12 days, 10 grand. Not because of a product, but because of perspective. Jordan Welch is phase 2, humility and reinvention. It's where you unlearn ego, rebuild integrity, and start respecting the boring stuff again. It's the season that separates people chasing validation from people building legacy. Now for the final phase, the one that no one really talks about. It's growth beyond yourself. And that's where Jordan Bown comes in.
Ever since 2016, I've been stuck in this exact office, being the solo entrepreneur, working for myself, having no employees and having no network, no people to really talk to or call on when I need help. And all of that changed in the end of 2022 when I went to Luke Belmar's Capital Club in Phuket, Thailand. That was my first real exposure to anyone that's been in this space. I've never even met an entrepreneur. I've been stuck in Utah my whole life, just hanging out with my friends, nobody that really understands what I'm working on, and no one that I can really relate with. So at the end of 2022, when I went to the Phuket event with Luke Belmar, it changed my mind a lot.
He spent years grinding in isolation. No team, no network, no one who really understood what he was chasing. And then one trip to a networking event flipped his world upside down. Because when you build everything alone and then suddenly you step into a room where everyone's building something too, it just hits different. You realize that success is contagious when you're around people who breathe it.
But when it comes to network, if you're meeting people that have very high value and you're able to create rapport with them in a very natural and genuine way, there is a huge level of instant insights and value that you receive, but you genuinely long-term cannot measure how powerful one connection could be for you. One of my favorite things I've learned from meeting all of these people, Luke, Jordan, Welch, Sebastian, is just seeing the level that they think at. Everyone in this realm is thinking very, very big. And most importantly, they know how to leverage people to achieve these dreams.
What I love about what he says here is how every single person in that circle thinks bigger. They're not competing. They're cross-pollinating ideas. It's abundance, not scarcity. And I've seen this too. The higher that you climb, the more playful the successful people actually get, the more informative they get. They're not really that uptight. They're not obsessed with fake discipline or 4 a.m. routines. They've already done the grind. Now they're designing lives that feel good while they continue to grow. Jordan's lessons is that your environment is either training you or draining you. If you're always the smartest person in the room, then you're in the wrong room. And when he said you can't walk into a room of level 100 people when you're still level 5, I felt that.
Going from 0 to 1 is a personal journey. There's no one that's going to be able to help you go through that. The next thing is start a personal brand, document your journey from 0 to 1. Be yourself online. Get a presence where people are viewing you. You don't have to have flashy videos or insane animation. You just have to be real and show the process. There's always going to be someone behind you on the trail that wants to learn from you, even if you're not that deep on your hike up to success. Third thing is after you've been on this path for a couple years, you have some money to your name, definitely pay for some networking events. It's going to open doors like you couldn't believe. But before all of that, make sure you work on yourself, make sure you get that character level to an amazing place. So when you finally do get the chance to go in these rooms, you can easily connect with these people.
That's the truth before you chase better rooms. Become a better person. Because when you finally earn your seat at the table, the conversation changes. If you look at all 3 stories together, they connect like essentially a blueprint. AC Hampton shows you how discipline pulls you out of chaos. Jordan Welch shows you how humility saves you from ego. And Jordan Bown shows how self-work and environment keeps you growing. These are the 3 phases that pretty much every entrepreneur cycles through over and over again. So if you're in the beginning, grinding and broke, that's phase 1. If you've hit success and you've lost yourself, that's phase 2. If you're comfortable but craving something deeper, that's phase 3. Wherever you are, don't hate the phase that you're in, because every stage builds the mindset for the next one. So I want you to let me know down in the comments, what phase are you in right now? Are you discipline, humility, or growth? If this hit you, share it with someone who's grinding through their own phase. And remember, it's not about copying other people's path. It's about learning their principles and creating your own. You don't need luck, you just need to evolve as a person. Huge thanks to everyone for watching, especially if you made it all the way to the end. My name is Mario with AutoDS. If you enjoyed this video, make sure you smash that subscribe button, make sure you hit the like button, and I'll catch you all next time.